qualities of education? Yes. The same way there's qualities of suits and shoes and furniture. Everybody has to make their trade-offs. But I would argue, both about some historical examples and certainly in understanding the logic of the market as an economist, that on average and in general, the education for everybody on the spectrum of different qualities of schools would tend over time to be far better than what you have with this monopoly government system in which everybody's expected to fit one size fits all, and in which, since there's no competition and everybody's a government employee, there's no market type profit and loss pressure to learn from your mistakes and see that you make the better product.
How does this way of thinking to those who cannot afford private education?
Okay, the question is what happens about those who cannot afford private education. First of all, I would argue that the market would end up providing education for virtually everyone on a spectrum of market prices and qualities. But on the other hand, what if some people fall through the cracks? It's called private charity, philanthropy. I taught at a school in Michigan called Hillsdale College. It takes no government money, not a dime. It relies upon tuition and private charitable dollars. 75% of the students attending Hillsdale College are on some form of financial assistance from the college, either full or partial tuition assistance, all through private dollars. If a student shows an interest and a scholastic ability based upon, for example, their high school transcript or some other indication of potential, the college tries to do that. In the 19th century, schools were not free. Particularly in the first half of the 19th century, there wasn't even public school. In Great Britain, for example. To use an example of a country which was your former colonial master as well as ours. And between 1790 and 1830, a 40-year period, and that was at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Standards of living are low, incomes are low, people are working long hours, the emerging factory system. Between 1790 and 1830, 2/3 to 3/4 of the entire British population was made literate, reading, writing, and arithmetic. How? For pay schools, non-profit, often religious schools, home tutoring. Okay? And it was the growth of what in England was called the penny press. Cheap, mass-produced newspapers. Why was there a demand for it? Because now people could read. And that was the private sector solution of illiteracy, even when poverty was everywhere at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. In our societies in the West, and that includes the Bahamas, we're all part of the quote, Western civilization. We are richer than the British subjects of 1790 or 1810 Great Britain, by any measurement or standard, where we have the capacity to pay for education, charitably assist those who fall between the cracks. And I think that's a far better system in terms of incentives and motivations and outcomes, as well as moral. Because I find it dubious to say, because I think Joe needs an education, I'm going to tax Bill. By the way, how does government get its money? Taxes, right? It can be different types of taxes. Right? But who here pays their taxes voluntarily? Okay, what happens if you don't pay your taxes? What happens? Huh?
Interest.
Okay, what happens if you don't pay your property tax?
Interest.
And what if you don't pay your interest?
They'll
take your property, right? What if you resist having your property taken? You say, look, I'm an honest guy. I've never killed, I've never cheated, I've never stolen. All the income that I've earned is in fair and above board trades with my neighbors. And I use that money to buy this house. Why are you taking my house? I'm sorry, sir, you didn't pay the taxes we say you owed. We're taking your taxes to sell it for the taxes, your back taxes. I'm not giving it up. Sir, leave this building or I will have to use force, right? The sheriff, the policeman. Now you resist. It's my house, you can't take it, sir. If you do not get out, I will have to take you under arrest. I'm not going to be arrested. I'm an honest person. I've never done a bad thing in my life. Sir, I'm now taking you in custody. And now you resist arrest because you don't want your property to be taken from you. What does that policeman in principle have the right to do? To pull out a firearm. And if you continue to resist, to shoot you until you are dead. All because you didn't want your house taken for back taxes. So somebody could have a subsidized airline here in the Bahamas. Now, it sounds absurd when expressed that way. But, you know, all of us pay our taxes. Why? Because we know that ultimately, at the end of the day, it has the power of the gun behind it. They could shoot us. Now, it's sort of like the guy grabs you in the dark alley, grabs you around the throat, puts a gun to your head and says, your money or your life. Now, maybe after a second of hesitation, what do? Here's my wallet. Take my wife, anything. Okay, leave me alone. Well, is she listening? Oh, I hope. Anyway. Okay. Now, is this a voluntary act? The crook can say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I asked him, your money or your life? He gave me his money. He must have wanted to. What a nice guy. But you gave him your wallet because you knew that if you resisted, in principle, if he was desperate enough to get your wallet, he might shoot you. And for most of us, that would ruin our day. Maybe the entire week. That's what the government has behind it in principle. The power to use force to compel us to do what it wants, pay taxes. And what's moral about that? To give some other person's kid an education? Or to cover a subsidy of the Bahamian airline? What is moral in forcing people at the point of a gun to be charitable or to do something that others want? If someone puts a gun to my head and makes me do things that I don't want to do, including parting with some portion of my money, regardless of the rationale or the justification, I'm a slave. I'm a slave. Now, gee, maybe I'm just not noticing it, but your skin color is a little different than mine, which means that your ancestors had a misfortune that mine did not. And that is maybe some of your ancestors were literally slaves. Okay? Is that moral? Because what is a slave? It's someone who is taken against their will and made to work for someone else without their choice. And if they don't work for that other, they are threatened with punishment, which can include physical harm, the lash, the whip, and if they attempt to run away, to be shot at. All of us view that type of traditional old-fashioned slavery as morally repugnant. We supposedly have banished that from the world. But what gives a political authority, whether he's claiming to be guided by the will of a majority or not, to put a gun to your head, for you to live a way you don't want, as long as you're being peaceful and nonviolent towards others, and to take a part of that which you have honestly earned for purposes and causes which you may or may not share? That is unjust and immoral. And in the long run, no society can function or survive on that basis. And by the way, just let me add one thing. Throughout history, slavery has been an equal opportunity institution. The Greeks used to enslave Greeks, the Romans enslaved other Europeans. I mean, just by the accident of history, in the 18th and 19th century, it happened because of people taken from Africa to other parts of the world. But slavery has been an equal opportunity institution. Chinese used to enslave other Asians that they conquered. Yes.
So I understand the rule of the had a creating problem. But despite the bailout, they weren't really responsible for the mismanagement of the funds. So by extension, those entrepreneurs, they are failing. They didn't suggest them to spill over their employees' money effectively. Yeah. So how is it inherently bad for a government to set up regulations to protect people who aren't directly responsible for the management of that company, and then
I understand. I kind of get it. Okay, this is a problem. You know, there's innocent bystanders. Okay, there's innocent bystanders. The difficulty of this, separate from I would argue at one philosophical level, the morality of still taking